Chosen one, 'tis not an ordinary night. Something in the spirit has shifted around your life. For a long time you cried in silence while people laughed at your pain. You stayed awake at night wondering why the battle never ended. You questioned why betrayal followed you, why doors closed in your face, why your heart carried so much weight while others seemed to move freely. But heaven says the suffering was never meaningless. The delays were not punishment. The tears were not ignored. Every lonely season was preparing you for this very moment. Archangel Michael stands as a warrior over your destiny. And this message is arriving because the war around your life is changing. The same darkness that tried to break your spirit is beginning to lose its grip. The same enemies who secretly celebrated your struggle will soon witness your restoration. Tonight, joy is entering places inside your soul that have been wounded for years. Heaven is announcing that your season of emotional survival is turning into a season of divine happiness. You have carried burdens nobody understood. People saw your smile, but they did not see the hidden battles in your mind. They did not hear the prayers you whispered while fighting tears. They did not know how many times you almost gave up, but still chose to stand one more day. God saw every silent fight. Heaven recorded every sacrifice. And now the spiritual atmosphere around you is changing, because your endurance has reached heaven's attention. Chosen one, there is a reason your spirit has felt restless lately. There is a reason you have sensed unusual emotions, unusual dreams, unusual signs appearing around your life. The spiritual realm often moves before the physical world catches up. What is about to happen has already been declared in the unseen realm. Before blessings appear in your hands, they are first released in the spirit. Before peace enters your home, heaven first breaks the chains that were fighting your future. Tonight, Archangel Michael is speaking courage over your heart. Fear has exhausted you long enough. Anxiety has stolen enough sleep from you. Disappointment has drained enough strength from your spirit. Heaven says, this is the hour where your soul begins to breathe again. You are not entering another cycle of pain. You are stepping into a moment of divine comfort that will remind you God never abandoned you. Some of you listening have been emotionally attacked for years. You trusted people who betrayed you. You loved deeply, only to be repaid with rejection. You gave your loyalty to people who could not recognize your value. Those wounds changed you. They made you quieter, they made you more cautious, they made you question your worth. But heaven says your heart is not damaged beyond repair. God is restoring the parts of you that life tried to destroy. The enemy wanted you to become bitter, but instead you became wiser. The enemy wanted you to hate, but your spirit still carries compassion. The enemy wanted you to stop believing, but somehow your soul kept praying even while broken. That is why heaven calls you chosen. Not because you are perfect, but because you survived spiritual battles that should have destroyed you. Archangel Michael says tonight will carry unusual peace for many of you. Some of you will suddenly feel emotional relief. Others will receive unexpected news. Some will experience restoration in relationships. Some will finally sleep peacefully after months of inner torment. Some will feel a supernatural confidence rising again inside their spirit. Heaven is reminding you that happiness is not permanently lost from your life. There are blessings moving toward you that your enemies cannot stop. The doors God opens for you now will not depend on human approval. You spent too much time trying to convince people to love you, support you, understand you, or believe in you. But God is removing the need for human validation from your spirit. Where you are going, divine favor will speak louder than human opinion. Chosen one, hear this carefully. The battle became intense because your future carries power. Darkness never attacks empty destinies. The enemy fought your mind because your thoughts carry vision. The enemy fought your peace because your spirit carries light. The enemy fought your confidence because your voice carries influence. What tried to break you was actually reacting to the greatness hidden within you. And tonight, heaven says you are closer than ever before to emotional breakthrough. The heaviness you carried is beginning to lift. The sadness you hid behind your smile is losing power. The grief that sat quietly inside your heart is being touched by divine healing. God is not only blessing your finances or your future. God is healing your soul. Some of you have forgotten what happiness even feels like. You became so used to survival that joy started feeling unfamiliar. You learned how to function while wounded. You learned how to keep going while emotionally exhausted. But tonight, heaven is awakening hope inside you again. Not fake hope, not temporary excitement, real hope that comes from knowing God is still writing your story. Archangel Michael says the attack against your peace is ending, because your next season requires emotional strength. You cannot carry old pain into the new doors opening for you. You cannot keep mourning what God already removed from your life. Some people left because they were assignments, not destinies. Some closed doors were acts of protection, not rejection. Heaven was saving you from futures that would have destroyed your purpose. Chosen one, stop believing the lie that your best days are behind you. Your life is not over because of one painful chapter. Your destiny is not cancelled because people misunderstood you. Heaven says your story is still unfolding. There are smiles you have not smiled yet. There is peace you have not experienced yet. There are victories waiting ahead that will make your current suffering look small compared to the joy that is coming. Tonight, many of you will feel something shifting emotionally. The chains of hopelessness are breaking. The spirit of discouragement is losing control over your thoughts. God is pouring strength back into your soul. The same person who cried in silence will soon testify in victory. The same person who felt forgotten will soon feel honored. The same person who struggled alone will soon witness divine restoration. Archangel Michael says, happiness is entering your atmosphere, because heaven has not forgotten your prayers. Every tear carried a message to God. Every lonely night carried a cry that heaven heard. Every moment you kept believing despite disappointment became evidence of your faithfulness. And now the spiritual reward for endurance is approaching your life. You are not cursed. You are not abandoned. You are not defeated. You are chosen. And chosen people often walk through deep valleys before they stand on high mountains. The pain was shaping your spirit. The waiting was building your endurance. The warfare was preparing your authority. One day you will realize that the hardest seasons created the strongest version of you. Tonight is not about coincidence. This message found you because heaven wanted to remind you that joy still belongs to your future. Peace still belongs to your spirit. Love still belongs to your heart. And victory still belongs to your destiny. Chosen one, congratulations. The season that tried to bury your happiness is ending. The night that carried sorrow is giving way to divine comfort. Archangel Michael says heaven is surrounding you with protection, breakthrough, and unexpected joy. And before this night is over, many of you will feel the first signs that your spirit is finally becoming free. Again, chosen one. There are moments in life when silence becomes heavier than words, when the nights feel longer than the days, and when your soul begins to carry questions that no human answer seems to satisfy. This is the place where many give up, but you did not. You stayed even when everything inside you told you to walk away. You endured seasons where your smile hid battles no one knew about, where your strength was tested in private, where your tears became your only witness. And now, in this moment, a shift is being declared over your life that cannot be ignored in the spiritual realm. Archangel Michael stands as a symbol of divine protection, strength, and warfare in the unseen realm, and this message carries the weight of a turning point. The season of silent suffering that has followed you for so long is not being ignored by heaven. Every night you questioned your value. Every morning you woke up carrying invisible pain. Every time you felt misunderstood or abandoned, it was recorded in the spiritual realm as part of a process that was shaping you for something greater than what you could see. The silence you experienced was not absence. It was preparation. There are pains that do not announce themselves loudly to the world. They live inside the heart, in the quiet spaces between thoughts, in the moments when you are surrounded by people, but still feel alone. You learned how to function while hurting, how to smile while breaking, how to keep going even when your spirit felt exhausted. This endurance became your hidden strength, even though at times it felt like weakness. What you did not realize is that every silent battle was refining your resilience, building a foundation that could withstand what weaker seasons would have destroyed. The suffering was never meant to define you, but to transform you. Many times you thought the delay in your life meant denial, that the closed doors meant rejection, that the distance between your prayers and their fulfillment meant abandonment. But heaven operates in timing that human emotion cannot always understand. The silence was not God ignoring you. It was God strengthening you in ways that only quiet seasons can accomplish. There were things in your character that could only be developed when no one was watching, when no one was applauding, when no one was validating your journey, chosen one. The reason this season felt so heavy is because it was not ordinary. There was a shaping happening in your spirit that required pressure. Pressure reveals what is truly inside a person. And inside you, even when life tried to crush you, there was still faith, still endurance, still something that refused to completely break. That is why you are still here. That is why you are still standing. Not because the battles were small, but because something greater inside you refused to surrender. Archangel Michael's symbolic presence in this message represents a breaking point in the spiritual resistance around your life. The forces that have been opposing your peace are beginning to lose their grip. The heaviness that once felt permanent is starting to shift. The emotional exhaustion that followed you through so many days is beginning to loosen its hold. You are entering a phase where what once drained you will no longer have the same authority over your mind and heart. The silence is transforming into clarity, the confusion into understanding, the waiting into recognition of purpose. There were moments when you questioned whether your prayers were even heard, when you felt like your voice was reaching no one, when your tears felt like they were falling into emptiness, but nothing you experienced was unnoticed. Every whispered prayer in the dark carried weight in the spiritual realm. Every time you chose not to give up, even when giving up seemed easier, you were building a testimony that will later become strength for others who will walk similar paths. Your suffering was not wasted. It was stored in the unseen as preparation for future restoration. The pain you carried also separated you from distractions that could have pulled you away from your destiny. Some people entered your life and left, not because they were mistakes, but because they were not meant to stay. Some situations collapsed because they were not aligned with your future. At the time it felt like loss, but in reality it was protection. The silence was clearing space around you, removing what could not travel with you into your next season. What remains after such stripping is not emptiness but readiness, chosen one. Your emotional endurance has been recorded in the spiritual realm as evidence of your strength. You have survived internal wars that were invisible to others, and yet you continued forward. That persistence has created a turning point. The suffering that once defined your days is now approaching its limit over your life. There is a transition forming, where heaviness will no longer feel like your natural state. where joy will begin to feel accessible again, where peace will not be rare but present. There is a reason why your thoughts have been shifting, why your heart has been sensing change even before physical evidence appears. The spiritual realm often moves first, preparing the internal before the external. You may not fully understand it yet, but something is breaking in your favor. What once held you in cycles of emotional struggle is losing authority. The same life once felt like it was working against you is beginning to align in ways you could not have orchestrated on your own. Archangel Michael's symbolic message in this moment is not about destruction, but about transition. It is about the end of a long emotional winter and the beginning of something that carries light again. The suffering that taught you endurance is now reaching its conclusion in your internal world. You are being prepared to experience life from a different emotional position, one where pain is no longer the dominant language of your heart, where hope is no longer distant, where joy is not something you remember but something you begin to feel again. Even now, there are changes forming in areas you cannot yet see. The silent battles that once consumed your mind are being replaced with moments of unexpected peace. The heaviness that once felt permanent is beginning to lift in ways that are subtle but real. You are stepping into a space where your story begins to shift from endurance to restoration, from survival to rebuilding, from silent suffering to visible transformation. Chosen one. There are moments in your journey when you begin to realize that what you once called delay was never delay at all, but divine protection carefully wrapped in silence. You looked at your life and thought you were being held back, but heaven was actually holding you together. You thought you were forgotten, but in truth you were being preserved for a version of life that your past self could not yet survive. This is why your emotional struggles felt so deep, because they were not random events. They were shaping experiences designed to rebuild you from within. There is a restoration that does not begin with external blessings, but with internal healing. Before anything changes around you, something must first change inside you. Your peace, your emotional strength, your ability to trust life again. All of these were being refined through pressure you did not ask for. Archangel Michael, in symbolic spiritual understanding, represents protection during warfare. And what you have been through was not ordinary emotional discomfort. It was warfare against your peace, your confidence, and your sense of direction. And yet, even in that warfare, you survived, chosen one. You have been carrying weight that others could not see. You learned how to function while feeling broken, how to answer questions while your mind was scattered, how to show up in life while your spirit was exhausted. This type of endurance is not weakness. It is survival at a level most people never have to experience. And yet even in that survival, something inside you refused to fully collapse. That refusal was not just emotional strength. It was spiritual resistance against everything that tried to erase your identity. There were days when you felt disconnected from your own joy. Things that once made you happy no longer felt the same. Conversations felt empty, achievements felt temporary, and even rest did not feel like rest. This is what happens when the soul carries too much for too long without relief. But even in that state, heaven was not absent. You were being observed in silence, not with judgment, but with awareness that your capacity was being stretched for a reason that would only become clear later. You may not have understood it in the moment, but certain losses in your life were not punishments. They were separations that prevented deeper pain. Some connections ended because they were not aligned with your emotional future. Some doors closed because they were leading you into cycles that would have kept you stuck longer. At the time, these endings felt like rejection, but in truth they were redirection. What left your life was not always meant to remain, and what remains now carries the potential for transformation. The emotional heaviness you carried was also a form of refinement. Pressure has a way of revealing what comfort never shows. Under pressure, you discovered that you still had faith even when it felt small. You discovered that you still had hope even when it was barely visible. You discovered that even when your thoughts were overwhelmed, something deeper inside you refused to completely give up. That inner refusal is what preserved your journey, even when everything external suggested collapse. Chosen one, there is a reason why your sensitivity increased through your struggles. You began to notice things more deeply, feel things more intensely, and understand people beyond surface level. Pain does not only break, it also awakens perception. You started seeing truth in situations you once misunderstood. You began recognizing patterns in people, in timing, in emotional experiences. This awareness is part of the transformation that suffering brings when it is not wasted. Archangel Michael's symbolic presence in your journey represents a breaking of unseen resistance that has been affecting your emotional stability. There is a shift happening where the internal battles that once felt constant are beginning to lose intensity. Thoughts that once overwhelmed you are slowly losing their grip. Emotional cycles that kept repeating are beginning to loosen their hold. This does not mean life becomes instantly perfect, but it means your internal state is no longer as easily controlled by external circumstances. As before, you are beginning to enter a phase where your emotional foundation is being rebuilt. This rebuilding is subtle at first. It shows up in moments where you respond differently to what once triggered you. It shows up in moments where peace returns without explanation. It shows up in moments where you realize that something inside you is no longer reacting the same way it used to. This is the beginning of emotional restoration, where the nervous system, the heart, and the mind begin to recalibrate after long periods of stress. There is also a deeper truth unfolding in your story, that not everything you went through was meant to destroy you, but to detach you from versions of yourself that could not carry your future. You had to outgrow emotional patterns, thought cycles, and attachments that were limiting your path. Growth often feels like loss, before it feels like expansion. That is why your journey carried both pain and awakening at the same time. Even your moments of loneliness were not empty. They became spaces where reflection, clarity, and inner strengthening took place. In isolation, you began to hear yourself more clearly. You began to question what you truly want, what you truly value, and what you can no longer tolerate. These questions are not signs of confusion, they are signs of awakening. A person who is being shaped for a stronger future often goes through seasons where old definitions of life no longer fit. Chosen one, there is a restructuring happening within your emotional world that is preparing you for a more stable and peaceful version of life. The chaos that once felt familiar is being replaced by unfamiliar calm. The emotional instability that once dominated your thoughts is being replaced by clearer awareness. You are not the same person who entered those painful seasons, and that difference is not accidental. It is the result of everything you endured. There is a quiet rebuilding happening inside you that cannot be rushed. It does not need external validation to prove its progress. It is a private transformation that becomes visible later, through the way you speak, the way you think, the way you respond to life. And even though you may still remember the pain, it no longer defines your present state in the same way it once did.